Hello everyone, good evening. I'm here with my Dreams and Miracles book by Anne Spangler. Let's see what story we're going to read today. And again, these are all true stories that people wrote in. Alright. This one is called The Dream, and it's by Sharon Crisafulli. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, but I will put it in the description below. So I will start off by reading you guys the introduction. Sharon's 8-year-old son, Jason, had a dream that troubled her. What was it all about? Was it some kind of warning? A week later, she woke in the middle of the night, overwhelmed by the need to pray for him. Shortly after, a mysterious stranger appeared on their street. She never knew his name. Now let's get into Sharon's story. This sounds very interesting, doesn't it, already? Good night, Jason. I leaned down and gently kissed my 8-year-old son's forehead as he snuggled under his comforter. He was wearing his favorite baseball pajamas. His hair, always a little too long, fanned out over the pillow. His eyes were already closed when I turned to leave, but as I was pulling the door shut, he called to me, "Mom, I just had a dream." I returned to Jason's bedside. "Honey, you haven't even been to sleep yet. How could you have had a dream?" "I don't know, Mom. It just came to me right after I said my prayers." His brown eyes held a serious expression. "I was in school at my desk," he said, in a strange, matter-of-fact tone. "All of a sudden, I fell over onto the floor. People were staring at me. I was dead." I sat with Jason until he fell asleep. His dream was disturbing. It seemed more than just a child's imagination. Several times in my life, I had similar experiences. I remember suddenly knowing my grandmother would die, though she appeared to be perfectly healthy. She left us 3 days later, and I remember being certain and seemingly happy couple were having deep marital difficulties. I don't know how I knew, I just knew. Afterward, they were the picture of marital bliss. A year later, they admitted they had been near divorce at the time. I went to bed wondering what Jason's dream was all about. Was it some kind of warning? By the following week, however, the incident had been pushed to the back of my mind. Our home in Merritt Island, Florida was a busy place, and I had plenty of other things to think about, including Jason's school activities and caring for Nicole, his lively 3-year-old sister. Then one night, a week later, I sat up abruptly in bed, wide awake. It was after midnight, and Jack, my husband, was sleeping soundly. For a moment, I thought it was he who had awoken me, but before I could get in another thought, I was overwhelmed with the need to pray for Jason. As I eased out of bed, I felt tears streaming down my face. I crept into his room and gathered him into my arms. I cradled his warm body against mine as I prayed. I rocked him as I had when he was a baby. Jason slept soundly through it all. Then it was over. The need to pray ended as soonly as it had begun. The next night it happened again. The sudden need to pray for Jason, and again the night after that. There was a time in my life when I would have felt silly praying the way I did. There was a time when I would have told no one. There was a time when I would have been afraid. But now I knew it was time to pray, so I prayed. By the third morning, my midnight prayers were becoming as predictable as the other routines of my life. As usual, I spent a few minutes before the children woke, sipping coffee and savoring the quiet. Nicole was usually the first to arise, but this morning she was still snoozing even after Jason was up and dressed for school. It was a gloomy and overcast. As I looked out the window, I was seized by a sense of sadness. Even as I made Jason's breakfast, my heart grew heavier by the moment. I walked Jason to the end of the driveway, right on time, and with a whoosh of air brakes, the school bus pulled to a stop across the street, its red flashing light. Jason and I both looked up and down the bus highway. I gave him a quick kiss, and he was on his way. He never made it to the bus. His left foot had barely left the pavement when a speeding station wagon came from nowhere and slammed into Jason, hurling his body 15 feet into the air. He came down hard, head first. It happened so fast. Now there he was, lying in the middle of the highway. I fell to my knees beside him. His eyes were rolled back. His tongue was swollen and protruding. In a matter of seconds, his right leg had swollen, straining the fabric of his jeans. It swelled so bad and so quickly. His left arm was bent at a grotesquely angle. I leaned close to his face and realized he wasn't breathing. "No," I whispered. Then I lifted my head and screamed, "No, no, Lord, you can't let him die." A crowd gathered. They were all staring, horror-struck. "Somebody call an ambulance." I was amazed at the sudden control in my voice. "And get my husband. He's working in the orange grove down the road." I bent over Jason and prayed aloud. "Dear God, I know you've raised people from the dead. Please raise up my son." I don't know how many people were in the crowd of onlookers, yet in their midst I suddenly felt a distant presence. I glanced up and found myself looking straight into the eyes of a bearded man, standing a few feet away. He had reddish-brown hair and stood relaxed with both hands in his pockets. Though it was only a second or two, it seemed like an eternity before he spoke in a surprisingly soft voice. "I have oxygen in my car." Moments later, the man knelt beside me and gently placed a mask over Jason's face. Almost instantly, Jason gasped and drew a long breath. Weeping with relief, I leaned over and whispered into his ear, "It's okay, son. Just think about Jesus. You're going to be okay." But when I turned to thank the mysterious stranger, he was gone. And although the road was jammed in both directions, no one saw him leave. Jason was in the hospital for months. His thigh and arm were broken. He had a severe concussion, but amazingly, there was no permanent damage. Now, 10 years later, I still shudder when I think what might have happened if I had not heeded those urges to pray and pray hard. You see, I know that the bearded man who saved Jason's life wasn't just some passing motorist. He was part of something bigger, something that involved Jason's dream, something that required my waking 3 nights in a row to pray for Jason. That mysterious man was part of a heaven-directed rescue, and he was there in answer to my prayers. And that was Sharon's story. I hope you guys enjoyed Sharon's story. You see how great our God is once again. You know that guy that helped him was probably an angel. I had a similar thing kind of happen to me when I had my first and only car accident years ago when I was younger, just starting to drive. The stranger just came out of nowhere, and she just happened to be an off-duty police officer, she said. And I was scared and didn't know what to do, and she took care of everything. And she just came out of nowhere. And then when I turned around, she was gone. And that was really strange. And I know she was an angel. I know she was. I still remember it like it was yesterday, and that's been, gosh, so many years ago. I was like 17 or 18 years old. Now I'm 34, so. But I know she was an angel. So, anyways, I'll let you guys go. I hope you guys enjoyed Sharon's story. And God willing, I'll be back tomorrow to read you guys another story, which will be by Pat Lamb Kovic, A Dream of Future Greatness. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Bye, guys. God bless.